is okay.
Yes, then we could welcome everyone to it's typically called the NORA afternoon webinar, but this is something new. This is very experimental for all of us, so we're quite new to this metaverse and virtual worlds. But today we will try out this technology, and with me here I have Ingvar, Serge, and Sachin. They can shortly introduce themselves, but we will listen to a talk from Serge about VR, AR, AI. That was all the kind of abbreviations, I think, today. it will last for 25 to 30 minutes, and then we will discuss in this room the technology afterwards. So with that, maybe Ingvar, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hello everyone, virtually and otherwise. I'm Ingvar Ugland. I run a small division in DNB Bank called New Tech Lab. So we're basically the window watchers. We're trying to look into the future when it comes to what we think will happen with technology, and creating a radar for the bank, and do that through practical experiments, building stuff, failing miserably, and building a portfolio of options for what might become the future. So that's all the buzzwords and everything will be part of things we're watching, so or looking at, including VR, AR, AI, and whatever, all the things you will touch on and such. Yeah, so that's me.
Excellent. Serge.
Yes, my name is Serge Belongie. I am a professor of computer science at the University of Copenhagen, and I'm the director of the Pioneer Center for Artificial Intelligence.
Sachin.
Hi everyone, this is Sachin, part of NORA's secretariat. My mandate here is to do research coordination.
Excellent. And we had a new one coming in in the final minute.
Yeah, well, I got the Oculus Quest. We had a problem today early.
Yeah.
It's Naji.
Naji, hi Naji, that was exactly what I was wondering. It's not easy to recognize everyone when you see the avatar for the first time. I could also tell to everyone that I pumped up my avatar a little bit, but Ingvar next to me, he might look big. Yeah, Ingvar is actually bigger in real life than he is in this world. So we are playing a little bit around with this technology, I think. I think, maybe you should say some words about yourself.
Yeah, I'm the CEO of a startup. We have been working with AI and virtual reality, mostly within environment and biotechnology, actually. Some nanotechnology. So we're trying to create in VR a molecular modeling and simulation environment. Actually, that's what we're doing with the application areas: aquaculture, fish, vaccines, custom designed nanomaterials, and that kind of stuff. And we have had 2 projects finished already with VR. And one that's ongoing, that's basically a student project. That's 3 students working on it. And we're now applying, if anybody is interested in Denmark, they're looking to apply for the EU project, the 4th one, basically. I have a computer science background with a molecular biology secondary major from a long time ago. And I have a double master, one in applied statistics or data science, and one in computer science, and a PhD in computer science. So that's me.
Excellent, thank you. And most people maybe know me, but Klaus Pettersen, I'm the CEO of NORA. I will just make it short like that. And by that, I think I will just introduce them Serge, and the screen or floor or whatever we call it in the virtual world is yours, Serge.
Great. Thank you. So this is my first time giving a talk in a virtual room. I will be presenting So as I mentioned in my introduction, I'm the director of the Danish Pioneer Center for Artificial Intelligence. And one of the 7 collaboratories of the Pioneer Center actually is focused on AR and VR. So I'm going to start just by describing the center a little bit. And I'm just waiting for some lag on the slides.
Yes, if you can try to share them on the wall here as well.
Oh, I see. Okay. There.
Excellent.
Okay, so let's see if this map will show up here. There. So the Pioneer Center for Artificial Intelligence, which launches later this month, is made up of AI research groups from 5 different universities across Denmark. And so you can see them here. 2 are in Jutland, 3 are in the capital region. We're supported by 5 different Danish foundations. And there's a link down there to our microsite where you can learn more about the general Pioneer Center. But as I mentioned, I'll just be talking about the XR aspects of it. This is just a snapshot of the building where we will have our permanent home. It's the old observatory, which is near one of the big train stations in Copenhagen. It's a nice historical building. It's still being renovated to get ready for us. So as I mentioned, the Pioneer Center is divided into 7 collaboratories. And if you look across this list of 7, I think you'll find that they are largely what you'd expect at a typical AI conference, like computer vision, natural language processing, speech processing, NLP. All those things would fall under one of these collaboratories. But what you don't usually see in an AI center is extended reality. And this is something where I just felt strongly that if I had the opportunity to run an AI research center, that XR should have a seat at the table. My reasoning being that I predict that in around 5 years or so, which is halfway through the projected lifetime of this of the Pioneer Center. So maybe in about 5 years, AR will be the primary means through which most people experience artificial intelligence in their day-to-day lives. Now, there's always a chicken and egg relationship between how people experience artificial intelligence and which devices are commonly accessible. The device that you have in your pocket has certain functionality that gives rise to certain opportunities. The research labs in academia and industry work to fulfill those opportunities. And I think we'll be seeing more and more of these kinds of AI related opportunities popping up on mobile handsets, headsets, and networked 3D environments and so forth. So I think it's a big opportunity. The Pioneer Center is set up according to this, well, we use this matrix to try to maximize both research and societal impact. So you see across the rows, each of the 7 collaboratories. So we just have the abbreviations, like the CX is causality and explainability. So XR is highlighted there. And the Pioneer Center aims to do core or fundamental or basic research. So we want to recruit PhD students and postdocs who want to advance the cutting edge of research in some sub area of AI. We're measuring, one of the performance indicators is top quality conference papers and journals at the mainstream conferences in that area. So we're looking to recruit great students and postdocs and junior faculty, but we also want to cultivate an environment where the research that the students are doing aligns with one of these 10 areas of societal impact. So these, does this pointer work? No. How about the mouse? Yeah, the mouse works. So each of these collaboratories is supported by 2 to 3 co-leads who are faculty at one of the 5 universities that I showed on the map. And these areas of societal impact are supported by members of the Pioneer Center's National Advisory Board. So we are in the process of building up this advisory board with everyone from recent grads who join companies to C-level executives who are just interested in what's happening in cutting edge AI. And so we have a process, which I won't go through in this talk, that provides some kind of structured contact between researchers in the center and members of the National Advisory Board to help disseminate results and cultivate connections between these research areas and areas of societal impact. The way that we're approaching the XR collaboratory here is largely inspired by the counterpart at Cornell Tech, which is where I was before moving to Denmark last summer. So the XR collaboratory at Cornell Tech is headed up by Haraldsson, and it's organized around what we consider to be the fundamental disciplines of XR. We describe it that way because we know that a lot of universities have complicated relationships with AR and VR. It's not that common to find faculty who unambiguously align with AR or VR. And that's also the case at Cornell. But what you do find are faculty in these fields with enduring traction, like computer vision, computer graphics, human-computer interaction. PhD students, junior faculty, it's always risky for them to engage in multidisciplinary research. They can sometimes slip between the cracks, even if the department chair or dean of the university of their school want interdisciplinary work, which is necessary for XR. It's complicated. So what we want to do with this XR collaboratory, what we've done at Cornell for 3 or 4 years and what we're cultivating now in Denmark, is something where the collaboratory, it's not a degree granting institution, it's not something that has its own curriculum, but it's a place where these kinds of collisions occur. So faculty who are in one of these areas could connect through this Pioneer Center network with HCI researchers, behavioral scientists, architects, and so forth, and give rise to impact in healthcare, for example, for virtual clinic visits that feel immersive. Education environments, which is somewhat close to this environment we're sitting in now. Urban tech for things like construction projects or architecture, interior design, and so forth. And then, of course, entertainment. Gaming is probably the most visible aspect of XR these days, whether it be for Pokemon Go or first-person shooter games that appear in the App Store for Oculus. Looking at opportunities that could exist where XR meets AI, I'm just listing these as some discussion points. And I think we will have time during the second half of this hour to talk about this. And I think Klaus's team will have quite a few to add here. But some of the themes in what you see listed here are that if you, let's say you take something from mainstream computer vision and machine learning, like object recognition. So my group has worked a lot on plant, animal, and fungi recognition. So we collaborated with iNaturalist and made an app that allows you to take a picture of a flower, for example, or a snail, and then identify the genus and species. So that's something that works quite well. It's not augmented reality. It's something where you deliberately take your mobile device, you take a picture, you submit it, you get it identified. If you try to take that tech stack and put it on a head-mounted display and just run it on the frames, I don't know who here has tried that type of thing before. It turns out the results are quite disappointing. You run into problems with the resolution, image quality. I'm thinking of things like HoloLens, Magic Leap 1. I haven't tried the Snap Spectacles, but it's a very different capture device. You can have a lot of saturation effects going from indoor to outdoor environments. As I said, the motion blur is a problem. And just generally, there's something, I would describe the kinds of captures as unsympathetic to the target. Whereas sympathetic would be something where the user, as I described before, takes the mobile device and very kindly frames it for the object recognition system. So that kind of thing, just the harsh realities of putting on an AR headset and just expecting these off-the-shelf methods to work, there's a bunch of rude awakenings that will happen there, and that's going to give rise to AI opportunities. There's also probably a whole rich set of opportunities involving eye information. I think future devices for AR and VR will probably have multiple cameras and other sensors pointing at your eyes to try to improve the sense of immersion. As we all sit here, it's actually pretty cool that we have these avatars, but the reproduction of the micro expressions, the gaze direction and so on, it's not quite there yet. And so that kind of thing, I think we'll see a lot of opportunities there, not just where you're looking, but more information about how your eyes are moving. And we shouldn't forget these other kinds of signals like haptics, or even sound is really overlooked. I find that in this environment, the fact that there's stereo panning or that there's spatialized audio, it makes quite a difference. It feels rather immersive. And when Sachin is talking, I hear him in my right ear. I turn and it's that's nice. Of course, that's a very simple thing, but I think there's a lot of opportunities there. And then I should mention, it's not just about computer vision, graphics, multi-view geometry, SLAM. Those are probably unsurprising topics, but issues like abuse prevention. So I found out earlier, if I reach out and I touch another avatar, the way that it's implemented in this beta, the avatars simply disappear. Well, we don't know what types of abuse yet are going to happen in virtual environments, but chances are there will be various forms of graffiti, hate speech, problematic actions or behavior or aggression. And this is always a cat and mouse game in any sort of online environment. But if you're trying to attack that in a large 3D multi-networked universe or metaverse, and all sorts of unexpected things are happening, that's going to have a lot of challenges. Auditory abuse, the actions, all those things are going to be tricky. And then more broadly, in terms of the cognitive psychology and behavioral psychology, this is the metaverse is a completely new set. It's a whole bunch of opportunities. There's a lot of potential for peril in terms of manipulating people, where particularly in VR, where you control every single pixel that the person sees. And so we've talked in the past in social media about being in a bubble, a social media bubble, but at least you can still see one another. You have some kind of common sense of reality. In VR, you could imagine that notion of a bubble and the collection of nudges becomes something that could be quite challenging at a societal level. Things involving marketing, manipulation in news media, and so forth. And of course, there's things like the going beyond keyboards and joysticks and so on for input devices, teleportation, and how that can cause motion sickness and so on. So this is just a few examples. One case where my group has done some work that involves optical see-through augmented reality. So the picture here shows an ML1, the Magic Leap one. And this is an instance of projector-based AR. In this case, you're projecting augmentation patterns onto optics that are in front of your eyes, and then that using SLAM type techniques that gets aligned with the scene in front of you. Obviously, the simpler form of projector AR is when you have something like a light form projector where you're projecting directly onto the scene, and then you also have a camera. So in both of those, so in the case of something like HoloLens or Magic Leap 1, the kind of problem that you have, which you don't see in VR, but the problem that you have is this ghosting all over the place. So you, when you try out typical AR headsets, it needs to be in a room that's dimmed. So this virtual room we're in right here with all these open windows and lots of light coming in, you just wouldn't be able to use it in an environment like that. And that led to a lot of disappointment, because when Magic Leap and Microsoft HoloLens were rolling out their first batch of marketing material for augmented reality, they showed these rather remarkable renderings of whales jumping in the middle of a basketball court, and all sorts of vivid graphics in your living room. But in fact, you put on the headset and everything just kind of looks like ghosts. So this problem, of course, is that you can't subtract light. So when you're projecting light onto a scene, onto your head-mounted display optics or onto a scene, you can only add light. So it's not possible to subtract. And so I won't go into any details here. This is just kind of a provocation, but we said, what if you wanted to do things like style transfer or attribute manipulation on images in a optical see-through augmented reality setting, where you had to keep everything non-negative? All you can do is project light onto the scene. Would it be possible to achieve things like style transfer? For example, taking a painting that has an impressionist style and trying to turn it into a photo that appears photorealistic, or a scene that appears photorealistic. So using off-the-shelf style transfer methods, almost certainly the residual image that you would need to add to the input image would contain lots of negative RGB values. So we developed a new technique that we call stay positive. And what we do is we solve an optimization problem that takes into account human visual perception, concepts like white balance and so on, so that if you have an input image like this that's captured during the day, and your target is to do some kind of style transfer that makes it look like nighttime, well, as I said, you certainly can't project light onto a HoloLens or Magic Leap 1 to subtract. It just isn't possible. However, if you can tolerate a certain amount of offset in the sense of white balance, you can actually find a pattern, a residual pattern that you can add to this that produces this stimulus in the middle. And this one does appear to have kind of a nighttime appearance to it. It doesn't look as good as the target, which is the actual one, but you can see that it's playing tricks in terms of how the RGB histogram looks, and you actually get this perception that it does look like it was taken at night. And you can do the same type of thing with, as I mentioned, with attribute manipulation. If you have an image where somebody had a neutral expression and you want to add a residual pattern to it so that the expression changes to look happy, like they're smiling. If you take these off-the-shelf methods that don't take into account that you can't subtract brightness, you can try to apply it, but you're going to get these artifacts like this horizontal line that's left over from where the mouth was closed. But with our constrained optimization approach, so-called stay positive, you get a better appearance, again, at the expense of the global image being a little bit washed out. So this is the kind of thing where you simply wouldn't need to work on a problem like this without the context of something like augmented reality and optical see-through. If you were just working in a fully rendered environment like in VR, why would you do it? You have control over every single pixel. But when you're blending the physical world and with the virtual world, as is the case with ML1 and HoloLens, you do have these constraints. And there's the GitHub repo for that project, just called Stay Positive. So I think that's my last slide. So as I said, this is really just, I wanted to tell you about the Pioneer Center, XR Collaboratory, and just set the stage for some discussion. I think we can use the second half hour just to kick around ideas about AI and XR. So I'll just hand the virtual floor back to Klaus.
Thank you, Serge, for an excellent presentation. It's extremely interesting to see a lot of is obviously happening in this field, and your activity in Denmark focusing on this is also a possibility maybe for others to reach out to if you're interested in this. As you say, Serge, in the typical kind of research environments, you don't have too many researchers doing similar things because this is quite a new field. But this is the technology that has developed very quickly in the last years, and even more so probably in the years to come. So this is important, and therefore also we have some also participants from also industry here. I don't know, maybe we should first, as you mentioned, Serge, not everyone in Zoom has experienced this feeling of being here in VR. And as you say, it's very, especially the sound is very realistic. So when we speak to each other, I could even speak more or less loudly to people next to me, and they will kind of experience that quite as it would be natural speech in the same room, I think. So sound is very good, but it's still. What do you think, Ingvar, about the feeling of being here? And if you have any more comments to VR, AR.
I agree. The sound is it's a little bit like if you're not allowed to do this. If you're watching a football game while you're driving, you shouldn't do that. But if you have great sound, I mean that it makes you feel like you're almost following, although your eyes are always on the on the road.
Of course,
it's almost like you're following just because of the sound. And I think that's what all kind of. I'm almost forgetting that you guys aren't real because the sound comes from. It makes it more natural.
Yeah.
And I think that's my biggest surprise. I mean, although you look ridiculous with those overalls, the sound is still like it's on. Yeah. It's because it's also 3D. It's better than having a conversation on the phone. And just throughout the presentation, the fact that you can look at each other and see who pays attention to what. There's some body language you can pick up here, although a lot is missing, obviously. But I'm still positively surprised by.
Sorry, Alex wanted me to change the style to more circular, so I hope that's okay with all of you.
Yeah, that's also fine, and also a feature that you could notice that we could also change rooms quite easily. So now we're in another room. This is maybe easier to have as a roundtable discussion room. Naji, do you have any comments, first of all, to the presentation or to what you are doing also in your work in VR?
Yeah, well, first, thank you very much. It's very interesting. It's very nice to see that people are actually paying attention to these areas. So thank you for the presentation. One question before I say anything more. You probably know Vario, the headset. Okay, because I just wanted to ask because that has real eye resolution level, and it's the pass-through is a good deal better than the other ones. That's why I asked.
Yeah, well, I should say I've read about it. I haven't tried it, and it sounds amazing.
Yeah, they claim to be the best in the world.
Yeah,
well, it's a Finnish company.
Yeah, it is a Finnish company. It's correct, and I can confirm they are incomparably better than most of the others. So I would recommend highly that you try that because there are several things that are better. One of them is eye tracking, which is pretty interesting in certain areas, at least in certain applications. The other one is the pass-through, and it is a real pass-through. You can actually create your virtual thing, and that will stop the real reality from being seen, or you can actually see through that. You can do quite a lot of stuff related to that. And you can, if you have your mobile phone in your hand, you can actually read it. It's that high resolution, and you can interact with it. So that is a good one, especially related to some of the stuff that you were showing. So they are pretty good. I recommend it. I don't have shares.
But I think it also
we did try
makes it good for us because we're always talking about Nordic collaboration. So we have Serge here from Denmark, and we are from Norway, and now you're introducing the thing from Finland. So it makes it better.
Yeah, just find a Swedish and we're done.
What do you think will be kind of the most important applications in the years to come now? Of course, you have touched upon it, Serge. Maybe Sachin is, we are doing this today also. This is also new. We don't have a virtual hand now. We have a virtual hand, but it's for real.
Yeah.
Sachin, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I remember, when I was in my first job in Adobe, and I had a lot of patents about how do you take physical documents into the digital world. And I get the same epiphany now that you take physical things into the virtual world. And I think there is a lot of information that we lose when we don't get that metadata. And I believe that after watching what Facebook has done in their recent Inside the Lab event, I think they're trying to get a lot of haptic data from the real world into the virtual world, so that when you pick up something in the virtual world, you get the same sense of feeling. I feel once you digitize this kind of information, it creates a lot of ancillary benefits, because things like robotics, they will benefit when you take this data back from the virtual world to the real world. So all of a sudden, the robots in
There was a slight issue. This is the first time we're doing a VR webinar, so I'm just rejoining the workroom now. So I should be accessing it shortly. So this is always the case when you try to do new things. So let's just see. Let's see. At least it's working for the people in VR, right? But I think I just need to try to access the room again. So I guess that's how it is to be a guest in virtual reality. And let me try to let's see. Just give me a second. Let's see. There we are. It's should be coming back up now. Let's see. Apologies for the interruption. Let's see.
Depression the person is in, or something like that, and how well your session is helping that person. It's mostly the AI part is recognition, as you probably guessed, also capturing eye movements and expressions and all that stuff. And the VR part is being in an environment which is under the control of the psychiatrist. So you can change things, you can put things that are more, I don't know, comfortable for the patient maybe, or maybe stimulating so that you see the reaction and that kind of stuff. That is one of the areas where VR and AI mix pretty well, I think. The other project that is our main area really is drug discovery, drug development. You see the, if I'm going to summarize it, I'm not going to go into the details, but function of a protein or a molecular structure is highly related to its structure. It's almost one-to-one relation. So if you are in a VR environment, in an immersive environment, when you see, for example, the infamous COVID spike protein, and you have alternative molecules in your hand that you can direct with the help of AI, see which areas may collapse in the COVID protein. Using those things, you can get these suggestions, and you can have a group of people actually trying these things and see visually the folding, the collapsing is what we call, of the protein, which makes it impossible, renders it impossible to attach to a human cell. That's why we want to collapse it, basically. That's another area. And there we use graph neural networks or convolutional neural networks, because structural match or visual match is easier. Recognition type of stuff is easier in those kinds of environments. And I saw semantic technology or graphs. We use semantic technology for representing the molecules, because they carry the visual information and the affinity information and the electrostatic information, hydrogen binding, all that in one data structure. So they are very advantageous for this kind of application. Those are two examples. There's lots of interesting stuff.
There are many examples. I see also Alex appeared on screen. If anyone has questions from Zoom, I guess you can read them out, Sachin, and
I guess there are some
Alex.
questions. Yeah, there are a few questions. The first one is whether kind of how well kind of film and TV represents the advances kind of in VR technology today. It says technology, but I'm just assuming that this question is related to VR. Correct me if I'm wrong, Silvina. I think maybe it relates to what you were saying earlier, Serge, about people representing technologies in certain way in advertisements or in popular media, and kind of how is that now for VR, so to speak? That's the first question.
I think I missed a word at the beginning of it. What was the first part of the question?
So how well or badly are film and TV representing these advances in technology today?
Oh, so like the depiction in popular entertainment as it compared to.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that's a good question, because AI has had its share of that going back to things like Terminator and American TV shows like CSI, where they have like a very low resolution photo, and in the TV series that you can zoom in 1,000 times and see tons of detail. So as someone who's taught computer vision and machine learning many times, I'm used to students coming up during break or after class asking, is this possible? Could there be a Terminator 2? And they show what the world looks like through the eyes of the Terminator with the people detected and all that. And as an instructor, I firmly believe there's no dumb questions. So I think it's always just an opportunity for dialogue. So if you see something like Ready Player One, what are some of the other very visible examples of AR and VR? I mean, Ready Player One is a big one. Where else are people seeing it?
So I read this book recently. It's quite old book, but I think people in the Valley swear by it. Snow Crash.
Snow Crash, yeah. So I think the reality circa 2022, I think anybody who tries one of these headsets for the first time, there's a sting of disappointment right off the bat because it's bulky. You put the thing on, and we're all muscling through a full hour here, but it's tough to have a Quest 2 on your head for more than 15 minutes. And I think that's something in movies, people, in Ready Player One, they just put on that headset and it's never really an issue. The person feels completely immersed. So, but I'm sure that that's something that's going to get better. With Sachin, what was, just remind me again that example.
You mean the book I mentioned? Or?
Oh, Snow Crash, yeah. So I think what's hard to ignore when we talk about AI plus XR, there's this entire commercial dimension to it, which is, it's not the metaverse, but which metaverse. So you can see that there is this economic dimension to the metaverse. And if you use a very loose analogy to planetary colonization, you could think of each big company as offering a new planet that has been colonized. And then you can go to that planet. And when you're there, you need real estate, you need access to natural resources, you need entertainment, you need a device in order to get there. So whatever these planets are, I would say Facebook, Meta, Amazon, Google, they all want their planet to be the best. Now, in fact, if consumers have an option, they can just hop around between them. But this really raises this, I was talking earlier about the information bubble. This is potentially a dystopia in the sense that people fall into these different silos of completely different metaverses. Some could be prohibitively expensive, others could be free, quote unquote free, and powered by ads, which manipulate people in subtle ways. So I think that science fiction, Black Mirror, Snow Crash, they've all done a very good job of alerting the public to the kinds of problems that can happen. But right now, I think that most, someone who's worried about those kinds of problems, it's just a splash of cold water once they put on the actual headset, particularly with AR. They put on the headset and realize how small the field of view is and how unconvincing the graphics are. And suddenly that dystopia doesn't seem like such a problem. But we do need to think about that, particularly the behavioral manipulation aspects of it.
Just one, I see your hand, Sachin, but just, you're leading the new tech lab in DNB, the bank.
Yep.
So new technology is kind of what you're doing, I guess. How do you see this technology important for a bank? It sounds to me, I cannot see whether this could be important to the bank, or what do you think?
I'm trying to keep an open mind on most of these things, but it is hard to envision that this will take over any situation that at least if you talk thinking interaction with the customer, or I mean, if we think about traditional banking and leave real estate and maybe insurance type of things on the side, I mean, these are obviously arms of many banks, including DNB, in traditional banking. I mean, when exploring technology, we're used to being wrong all the time. So, but as of now, there's a lot more to AI than I think there is to VR. But I'm happy to be enlightened on things I haven't seen yet. But no, there's something about coming back to popular culture. There's the Matrix. What is it? They say never send a human to do a machine's job, and I think there's something about the opposite as well. And during the pandemic, and I mean, after a while, people got worried about their economic situation and so on. And while when everything is good and the Norwegian economy is good and all that, most things is about convenience, and you can do most things that you used to do, you go to a bank to do on your mobile bank, much more fast, convenient, and your money usage, the features you can get in the mobile bank these days, it's much better than you can ever get from going to a bank in the old days and get and ask someone there, how's my money usage and consumption doing. On the other hand, when there's something you really a bank is like just about convenience up until the point where it's something you need to make one of these really important decisions in your life. A bank is very often a part of that. There's some economic transactions too, these things, and especially if you're worried about your financial situation, people still want to talk to a human being, and we still see that there's a scenario for that. People want to talk to human beings, and they want to see a person because they want to read the body language and see a person that you have confidence in. You get the feeling that this person wants you well, and that can say, if you're anxious about your economic situation, you want to hear the 3 words that all people love to hear. It's not "I love you," it's "I got this," or "det ordner seg" in the Norwegian. So that's the thing about never send a machine to do a human's job. And I'm not sure at this stage with VR that you can convey that that human factor, although much of this spatial thing is still pretty awesome. But there's something about all the other signals that your body language is saying that is kind of missing. So that's a long answer to a good question.
Yeah, and I mean, the development is absolutely going in the direction of more photorealistic avatars, for sure. So maybe in 5 years or 10 years, we will be here looking pretty much like real persons, although I might like to be a bit bigger than I am. But I'm thinking we have also a research project from Simula in the NORA, Mikael Riegler, among others, doing combining VR with language models like GPT-3. This is for practice for police officers or interviewers that interview children. And actually, he has in a sense created virtual children that kind of you can talk to and that talks back to you, and it works impressively well. So this also, in a sense, you could kind of materialize chatbots appearing as humans in front of you, and also photorealistic humans in the future. Do you have any thoughts about this moving more and more realistically into a new world with photorealistic avatars, where you're not actually sure whether this is a real person or if it's you, or all these kind of questions that will arise? I don't know if anyone has any comments to this. Sachin, maybe.
I just wanted to remark on this, what Serge showed in his slides also. And then Nazi also mentioned about collecting patients' data. What scares me is that, let's say, face recognition was cool AI application a couple of years back, and now it's almost like a crime, at least in EU, that people don't want to do face recognition. So these devices can collect a lot of biometric, like retina scan is unique. So I'm wondering, when Serge talks about companies' planets, that they can permanently ban me from entering a planet because they may have my retina scan. So I wonder, had I already given Oculus my biometrics, which are unique to me, or I don't know. So these kind of things, I am sure, will come in 5 to 10 years. And this may actually become a big topic, that what kind of data they are acquiring about us, like what Natri mentioned previously. And the second thing I'm just thinking for Ungvar is that how about we set up a marketplace on behalf of DNB where peer-to-peer lending can happen. So maybe you just facilitate me and class to have a discussion, and I convince in virtual world class to give me a loan, and you get your cut because you facilitated that. And if let's say then Serge comes up with a technology wherein he is able to ensure some kind of credibility of the avatar, or with DNB in some sense. So I'm just thinking aloud here. So so I can stop here, class.
One thing, I may have just vanished because I ran off and got this, someone else was using it, so it's not fully charged. I'm almost out of charge power. But one of the things is there's a group of Science Park, Forskningsparken, working called Atensi, if you may have heard about them. They're working on training, on the job training and education, but not really university kind of education. It's mostly like training kind of education. And they do things like onboard training that you can, and that is when you actually see the screen and also see the guide, and maybe you are in an environment. It's a more augmented reality kind of stuff that they're doing. So there are many applications almost independent of the area, in banking, in any company, I suppose. Yeah, well, I'd have to go and charge the headset. Sorry, I'm leaving you. It was very, very, very interesting. I hope we can do this again.
We should obviously do so, and thank you to you then, and go charge up yourself. And here we find a new kind of we're in a new situation now. We have headsets, they have batteries, and people now Naji went gray. So this is also issues to solve. But back to
coffee.
Sorry.
After an hour or 55 minutes, you need a cup of coffee.
Yeah, but it's also, like Serge said, it's quite heavy to sit for a long time. I have had 3 hours of VR today, and I'm feeling a little bit dizzy now, to be honest. But back to the technology, it's soon approaching an end. But other parts that could be a combination of AI, VR, AR is also what Meta self at least says that is important. It's not only the photorealistic avatars, but also translation. So they have been speaking a lot about also in this world speech-to-speech translation, which is obviously built on AI then, so that when I speak English, it could appear as Norwegian to do Norwegians and so on. I don't know, Serge, if you have any comments to these types of AI algorithms, or how to do this. Is this realistic in the near future?
So first, I think Gustavo has a question.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Gustavo is also here in 2D though, but
Yeah.
For whatever reason, my Mac does not facilitate the process of being in the Oculus. For whatever reason, I cannot see this meeting in my workroom, but well, it is what it is. I would like to hear the comment on your question, but also another area regarding privacy is, even if you don't collect any biometric per se, like the retina, the patterns of movement was already proven that you can identify people by the way they move. Actually, there was a paper from the Oculus team not a long time ago that they can single out an individual by micro movements of heads and hands. And that creates a privacy issue, because if you want to use the anonymity for whatever reason, like playing poker, maybe you're ashamed of playing poker, people can trace you back, people can identify you, people can track you. So yeah, this is, even when you don't have specific sensors for biometrics, the ones that are already embedded already create issue, and creates also the possibility for application for biomedical applications, like identifying early symptoms of Parkinson's, for instance, or Huntington's disease.
Yeah, looking at eye information with high spatial and temporal resolution could reveal things about people's health state that they had no intention to reveal or didn't know about themselves.
Absolutely.
So one comment about the different kinds of AI that one could run in an XR setting. I think what Klaus was mentioning is a very advanced kind of AI, like speech-to-speech, real-time translation. But in the short term, I think there's a lot more impact that AI can have in a kind of a bread and butter service role, just to make AR, even without flashy graphics, just to make it work better for average users that aren't looking to be entertained. And one setting would be, for example, physical therapy. If someone has an at-home caregiver and there's a remote physician, that is a typical setting where it's not that you need full-blown artificial intelligence. You actually have a caregiver that's present who can manipulate a knee joint for a patient that's there with that at-home caregiver. And you don't need millions of polygons rendered at 60 frames per second. What you need is basic technology where the remote physician can see the geometry of the knee. They can indicate the right points at which to manipulate the limb, measure angles, and so on. That kind of thing is really not about replacing the doctor with AI. It's about empowering or augmenting a human caregiver who's present at a remote location.
We are approaching 3 o'clock. I don't know, Alex, if there are some crucial questions from Zoom.
There was one more question from someone at Simula. But we do have 1 minute left, so maybe that is for later.
But I was wondering if Ungvar can respond to this, if you guys provide credibility from a financial perspective. So maybe what I was asking about this P2P marketplace, what do you think of that?
Yeah, so what you're bringing up is kind of a different dimension of the metaverse, and which is equally important, I think. How do you do finance and economics in a metaverse? And that's not just about, or actually that's the dimension that can exist in the metaverse independently of avatars and VR. So
because these days McDonald's is very popular in metaverse. So I'm just wondering if DNB would set up their shop.
Well, I remember back in the days, what is that, 15 years ago, there was actually a branch office in Second Life of DNB. But then again, there was pretty much everything in Second Life. What can I say? That's something we're monitoring constantly and trying to figure out what would make sense. And there's the ultimate, value proposition of a Norwegian bank, at least, or the Scandinavian banks, is what ultimately the value proposition is trust. So I need to be very careful about how we, once everything becomes moving into a metaverse, it's a digital world. It doesn't have to be virtual, but it's definitely digital. And how do you treat behavioral and personal data, for example? So I'm worried about the planet. Each of the tech giant is colonizing one planet by themselves, and because it's like nothing will be free, and the more free it is, the more locked in you probably will be, like it is in the physical world with social and whatever else is driven by advertisements. So I think ultimately the unfair advantage that is again Scandinavian banks bring to the table is trust, and if we lose that in when moving into the metaverse, then you're losing your key asset. So
that's obviously some questions that will be following us the next years, because it is, as you say, a digital world, and I wouldn't know who you really are, Ingvar. I'm only looking at your avatar. But with that, I think we should end the discussion, and I will say thank you to all of you participating in the discussion. And I think this was the first time, obviously. I'm sure it was not the last time we have similar discussions in VR. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for inviting.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I know.
Yes. I can stop the Zoom recording, I guess.
I guess Tore wanted to still ask the question. I think he raised